Probably her life was happy. At any rate, she had enough of courage to choose as she chose and to be as thrifty as she pleased, and she observed such of the world's conventions as seemed to her right and useful, coldly and calmly ignoring all the others. The New York Times, 1916. My first real sort of understanding of who she was came when my mother told me about a silver tray that we had in the family that had supposedly been given to us by this fabulously wealthy woman from the 19th century named Hetty Green. Her growing up in the whaling culture of New Bedford, Massachusetts, her storming Wall Street in the late 1800s, her adventures with high finance and her battles with Gilded Age robber barons, all made for the stuff of a wonderful story. Hetty Green's father was a man named Edward Robinson. He was a very astute businessman. He was very thrifty. He was industrious. I think it's safe to say that she spent her life sort of trying to emulate this father figure that she loved and admired. And her son, Ned, she groomed to take over her financial enterprises, and he became sort of a larger-than-life figure. Spent money in ways that Hetty never would have approved of, lived in fabulous mansions. Her daughter, Sylvia, named for Hetty's Aunt Sylvia, she sort of never pushed into finance, never tried to make her somebody in her own mold. In many ways, a more responsible steward of wealth, so to speak. So it's kind of ironic that Hetty, while herself a pioneering feminist, perpetuated these rather conventional roles for her kids. One of the great early battles of her life was over the fortune of her Aunt Sylvia, who had never married and had a fortune of about $2 million. And Hetty was determined that she be the sole heir because she felt she knew how to invest that money and take care of it and shepherd it. And it ultimately revealed that Hetty had quite probably forged the signature of her Aunt Sylvia. She did some highly unattractive things. For example, she took her son to free medical clinics. She could be seen haggling in grocery stores over day-old bread, buying broken cookies because they were cheaper. She could also be surprisingly generous. She lived in Hoboken apartment buildings very modestly and would stay up with neighbors who were sick and nurse them through the night. She loaned money to churches. She bailed out the city of New York on a couple of occasions when New York was running low on money. One of Hetty's most remarkable and admirable and too often overlooked qualities was her financial genius. She adhered to the words of advice that are the easiest to say but the hardest to follow, which is to buy low, sell high, and don't panic during a panic. Hetty Green is unfairly remembered for her personal oddities, for being a miser, for being the witch of Wall Street. And I think that it's important to remember her as a pioneering woman, somebody who stood up for herself, knew she had the capabilities. For all of her wealth, she always thought of herself as an outsider. She didn't think of herself as one of the corporate leaders or financial leaders or great bankers of the age. She saw herself as a lone individual standing up for her rights.